So today, guys, I want to talk to you a little bit about something that has been affecting a lot of people in the country, in the world, and it is breast implant illness. Yes. A lot of people don't realize like you can have an illness from breast implants, and you experienced that, obviously.
Yes.
And so this was something that obviously when I started dating Jennifer, there were a few things I liked about her.
A few?
A few things.
A few.
A few.
Oh.
100 things that I liked about
There
her.
you go.
And along with those things, I obviously liked her curves and her shape and her body. And obviously I was attracted to her as well as obviously the emotional and mental part. But, you know, it was one of those things for me as a guy that when she said, "Hey, I think I might have issues with my implants," I was like, "What? No, it can't be. No, I don't want that to be, you know?" And so it was really hard for me at first because, you know, it was like, I mean, what did I say when you first said that to me? I was like, "No, it can't be that. That's not."
I don't know. I just remember the names I called you.
Which is probably true.
Yeah.
I don't remember the names you called me.
Yeah.
Do you still remember the names you called
Yeah,
me?
I do. And I hung up on you.
Oh, that's right. It was over the phone, huh?
Yeah, you were mad because you said I ruined your outing with your friends. You were going boating.
Oh, that's right. I was going boating. I can't remember who I was with.
And I was laying in bed sick.
Yeah, and you weren't feeling good.
I was on one of those stints of where I couldn't get out of bed for days.
Yep. And and the thing is that I was always highly confused by that because I grew up in a environment with a mom that was always sick. She was always in bed. She was always sick. And so I always tried to pretend like that type of stuff just didn't happen. Right.
Well, she was sick and she had addictions.
Right.
So in your mind growing up, it's something she created.
Right.
And so you felt, just stop it already.
Right. Yeah. Cut it out. Like,
and so
be done with it. Yeah.
From the time I met you, I already had breast implant illness, but we didn't know what it was. And I remember when I very first met you, I was having heart issues and
right.
my heart would bother me. I'd end up laying down on your floor when I'm trying to walk somewhere because I'm starting to pass out.
Yeah. And I would look at it, I'm like, are you effing with me right now?
You would ignore me.
Yeah.
You ignored me. But you've also had someone previously in your life who was also a drug-seeking hypochondriac besides your mother.
Right.
And so then suddenly
my previous relationship.
Yeah. And so suddenly you're dating this chick who's claiming these things and you think that's normal crap. That's not really real.
Well, and you know, here you're having these legitimate physical ailments and I'm sitting here on my side going, will you stop effing around? Like, let's just live our life. Right.
Yeah. Cause we were dating. I was telling you about my heart. You just would ignore me.
Right.
And then I went in and had a procedure done.
You made me sound like a real a-hole, just by the way. I mean,
but everyone has their issues they go through of what they think reality is.
Right.
And so we all react based off of what life has taught us. And life had taught you this was bullshit.
Yeah, it was bullshit. And I was, you know, and I was always taught like, you know, just push through, you know, be better. You can, if you eat better, you'll feel better. If you, whatever, you know.
Well, I remember waking up from that procedure and you say, do you know your heartbeat is irregular? And I said, yeah, because I had told you.
Wait, which procedure are you talking about?
It was after the colonoscopy when they're trying to figure out what was going on with my digestion.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Because I was like, yeah, that's right.
That was when we were dating. And it was like you knew it for the first time, despite I had told you.
Oh, hey, a doctor told me. That's why I believed it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So for years growing up, not even growing up, but for years in your life after you, now when did you get your implants?
I was 26.
So 26 years old, you got implants. And when did you start feeling different after you had them?
It's hard to say because at the time I was really depressed in my life and I had PTSD. And so my choices for getting them wasn't coming from a very healthy mental place.
Yeah, because you weren't necessarily getting them because you wanted them to make whatever you feel better. You were getting them as a result of?
Because I wanted to feel ownership of my body.
Right.
I wanted to feel that I had some say in my body.
Right.
So by getting the implants, I'm like, no, that's my choice. It's my decision.
Right. Yeah. I remember, actually when I met you, 'cause you didn't get big old huge ones. So when I met you, I couldn't even tell. Honestly, I didn't even know if you did or not, but yeah, I was curious, obviously.
And I wasn't showy with them. I wasn't
right.
like flashing them around anywhere. It looked
no, when
normal.
I met you, you looked like a pioneer. So like, or like a polygamist.
Because I was going to a single scene and I did not want to be attacked by people. So I was trying to hide.
You didn't want attention from other guys, right?
Yeah. And I had some weirdies.
Yeah. Namely me. Was
yeah,
one
you
of
were
those,
one of the weirdies,
one
but
of those weirdies.
you somehow survived. Probably your sales skills pushed you through.
Of course. That's why we ended up together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, something like that.
So let's talk a little bit more about you feeling sick. So what started to transpire when you started to go, okay, wait a second, this doesn't feel right?
I think my hardest thing is my tendency for denial.
Mm-hmm.
So even when I wasn't feeling well, I would just push it aside. But I remember by about 2009, 2010, I had a hard time getting out of bed. I was cold when I woke up and I couldn't even pull my covers up over me because my hands hurt so bad. It physically hurt to grab my sheets and try to pull them up.
Wow.
And my joints hurt everywhere. I was diagnosed with myalgia.
Like
and
fibromyalgia?
Actually,
same thing or different?
Myalgia is more generalized, but she was going through and the doctor was indicating to me I essentially had all the points for fibromyalgia, but she was only going to diagnose me with myalgia at that point.
Oh, okay.
Which I can see now in hindsight because
is fibromyalgia just like the later stages of myalgia type of thing?
Myalgia is generalized pain. So
Okay.
I guess maybe fibro, I don't know, is chronic. It's been a long time since I read about it or looked it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So then you started to feel not right.
I was having a really hard time working. I didn't have the energy. I worked in film production. I didn't have the energy in me to go and work those long hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually cleaning houses and I was a bartender.
Okay.
And so
my wife was a bartender.
And so it was hard. It was hard just to clean houses.
Mm-hmm.
My body was just in so much pain all the time, chronic fatigue. And then over the years, it just advanced enough that I had a specialist diagnose me with lupus.
So what happened when he diagnosed you with lupus? What was your first thought? Because that's a severe diagnosis.
Well,
it's extreme, right?
She called me and told me over the phone. And
hey, just so you know, you have a life-threatening illness that may deteriorate your body and make you die.
Yeah. I remember where I was at. I was in Virginia, in Richmond. I was going to pick up something for work because at that time I was working in corporate America and I had good insurance and a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat in the car and cried until I could compose myself.
So she called you. Were you in your car when she
I was in my car
called you?
when she called. And I cried and got up and dusted myself off, went inside, picked up what I needed to, and didn't cry around people. But when I had down times, I probably cried for a couple of days.
Which makes sense. It would be normal for people to have that.
But at that point, it had escalated bad enough that in my home, I knew my bedroom was upstairs.
Right.
If I wasn't in my bed by 10 p.m., I might not make it there because my knees would swell up.
Okay. So by a certain amount of time in the end of the day, your body would start to shut down. Yeah.
And I would have to sit on my butt and go up one step at a time to try to get to my bed. And I remember even sitting at my desk at work typing and my fingers would just start swelling up.
Well, when I met you, you would have some of that too. You would have like your fingers would swell up and
if I used them.
If you used them. Yeah. Which you have to use your fingers, right?
Yeah.
but your fingers would swell up. And I remember like, oh, wanting a back scratch, you know, like, can you give me a back scratch, you know? And you'd be like, I can't, my fingers are like swollen or hurting. And then you would have massive amounts of like hives and stuff all over your body too.
Yeah, I remember we were sitting at our first house after we had gotten married, and I was sitting on a stool, much like the one I'm on right now,
Mhm.
with no socks or shoes on, and it had a metal bar
Yeah.
footrest.
Yep. I remember.
And I sat there for a while with my feet on the footrest, not paying attention. And the pressure of the bar on my feet caused my feet to swell up so big.
Right.
You had to pick me up and move me
That's
around
right.
because
That's
I
right.
couldn't
I
couldn't
remember
walk.
that. Yeah.
And I remember we also went wakeboarding with your brother.
Hmm.
And in my mind, I never wanted to try anything because I was so fragile. I didn't know it was going to break.
Right.
And I wakeboarded and I got up right in the beginning. So I only did a little bit. And you remember I woke up the next morning and my hands were so swollen, I couldn't open the doorknob to our bedroom.
Yep. I remember that. Yeah. Yep. And I was just like, wait a sec. This isn't obviously in her mind, right? Because I'm still in denial,
Yeah.
right? Denial was not just a river in Egypt for me.
Yeah. It was your river.
It was my river.
Your river.
But I remember going, okay, wait a sec. She does have some severity in all of this. Like there is something going on with her.
Well, and also with the children, with the childbirths, you knew something weird happened with each pregnancy.
Right.
Where I had life-threatening situations in both pregnancies to the point that after 2, you're like, no more.
Right. That's right. Yep.
So
what other symptoms did you have? Like what were the other?
let's get back to the lupus thing.
Okay.
So I remember during that time, I would need to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't make it. I remember just laying down on the floor, burning all over, feeling like my body was just shutting down and I was dying.
Mm.
And
this is when you were
When I
still
was
in Virginia. Yeah.
and I remember telling my dad my last wishes. How I wanted him to tell people when I died. It was real. My body, it was ambulance picking me up from work because I was tachycardic, and I remember them saying that as I was passing out.
And what is that for those of us who aren't doctors like you?
Elevated heart
Tachycardic.
rate.
Okay.
This is just a lot higher than it should be. And I had a silent migraine for 2 weeks at that point.
Meaning what? What did that do?
I didn't have the pain of a migraine, but I had all the vision issues from the
Okay.
migraine where you lose parts of your field of vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wearing sunglasses and a hat and working in a closet at my office
Wow.
so that I could keep working. Because like I said, it's denial. I always push through. No, it's going to get better. It's going to be okay.
Right.
Because that's the only way you survive at that point. It's
Right.
just deny, 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 push, push, push.
Right.
And so that's when I left. And after that diagnosis, after about a couple days,
Mm-hmm.
the fighter side of me kicked in. And I'm like, no, I am not getting that label.
So you're like,
That
F
is
this.
not
That's
my identity.
It's not me. It's not what I have.
And when I sit with myself, that is incorrect. And I looked up where autoimmune comes from and liver issues and that stuff. And I started thinking about the liver and what does the liver do? And I'm like, okay, there's something my body just needs to get rid of.
Right.
There's something poisoning my body. And so I went to a health conference. There was a doctor there who was going to be speaking from California that said he had cured lupus in 2 patients through diet. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to hear him. And while I was there, I heard so many different ideas of nutrition. And they said, you're going to hear different ideas. You just need to go with what speaks correctly to you.
Right.
And I
And
was
this
ready.
is assuming that you have lupus and that you're going to die.
Right.
Right.
And because doctors aren't giving me anything else. It's just, that's what they're telling me.
Right.
And I mean, $45,000 in medical tests that year. And that's after being told by a bunch of other doctors, it was all in my head.
And what were your close family members or like your boss or whatever? What were they saying about it?
My boss just ignored me. when I left the hospital, or no, I left when the ambulance took me away that day, seeing I was tachycardic. He called my phone while I was in the ambulance and gave me a list of things I needed to accomplish by the end of the day.
Wow. He called your phone. Did he knew you were in the
Yes.
ambulance and he called your phone?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And he, in my performance review, he complained that I wasn't available enough, even though I was working overtime hours. And he specifically cited when I had to go work in the closet.
Wow. The guy had some freaking
Yeah.
stupid.
And so, I mean, so anyway, I went for a second opinion with a different rheumatologist, and he looked at all the blood work because lupus is diagnosed with a bunch of different panels.
Right.
And he said, yes, all these indicate lupus, but there's this one that is kind of borderline. So I want you to come back in a few weeks and we're going to retest you. And then I'll give you medication.
And so what did you do at that time? What did you do at that point? Like, was this before or after you went to that conference?
This was before.
Okay.
So at that point, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to wait for that one to get worse. And then you're going to give me medication. Why are we waiting around for me to get worse?
Right.
So that you can justify giving me medication.
He's like, because I make more off the medication, ma'am.
And yeah, we need more visits from you. Like all the panels show it.
Right.
But one is right on the line.
So what did that tell you? What did you decide to do when the one was on the line?
Maybe there's a chance.
Right.
I'm going to choose which way this goes. And so I went to the health conference. I learned a lot of different things and just started applying different things to my life. I met a woman, and I think she was intuitive in some way. She just looked at me and said, something's wrong with your liver. And I'm like, yes. And she analyzed my
That
blood.
sounds like what you do to people now.
Yeah,
You're like, something's wrong with that lady's pancreas.
Well, you go through enough, you experience enough, and
Right.
yeah. So,
The left eye is a little more gray than the right eye.
so she ended up analyzing my blood and gave me a really restrictive diet that I did for months. And after 2 weeks of that diet, I went from, I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without sitting down to rest because I would start to pass out getting halfway up the flight, to I did my first mile. And it took 17 minutes. And I called my dad crying. You would have thought I did a 5-minute mile. It was such an accomplishment for me because understand, prior to things getting really bad, I was totally into fitness. I was a core conditioning instructor.
Right.
I got to the point I couldn't hold a plank to show new people in my class the proper way to do certain holds.
So you were instructing, but you couldn't do what you were instructing them to do at some point.
Got to the point I would sit on an exercise ball.
Wow.
And just tell them, and then
bark orders at the.
Yeah.
You did that to me when we first worked out.
Oh yeah, but I was in good shape then, and it was hilarious because you were struggling.
I was struggling.
You were about to cry.
Yeah.
You almost cried.
No, I think I'm pretty sure I did cry. I'm pretty sure.
I have a picture of it somewhere. I took a photo.
No, you guys cannot have this.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. So, I went on this really, really strict diet. I learned a lot more about nutrition. You have to understand, earlier in my life, if I ate a salad, I would dry heave. I could not stand the texture of a salad.
Right.
And I was meat and potatoes. And so it wasn't an easy thing for me because suddenly I could only have red meat 2 times a week. And the rest was focused on root vegetables. I'm like, root vegetables, but I couldn't have white potatoes. And so I had to eat like entirely all new foods. And it started during Thanksgiving. So I had to pack food to go to my families and watch all of them.
So you had
eat.
to pack food to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. For myself.
For yourself.
While I watched.
You couldn't eat normal Thanksgiving dinner.
There was nowhere I could eat out. I had to make everything from scratch. Like, it was pretty intense.
That is wild. So then fast forward a little bit. So you figured out, okay, I don't think I have lupus. I'm gonna freaking annihilate this. At what point did you start to question your implants?
I questioned it around the time I was diagnosed with lupus.
Okay.
But I searched the internet and I couldn't find anything on it.
Yeah, because at that time, this was 19 what?
No, this was
1982?
I was 2 years old. Funny. It was, that was in 2011.
Okay, so 2011, you look on the internet, there's just nothing for it, right?
Yeah, I've had my implants for 5 years at that point.
Okay.
And then...
And you're talking to you're asking your doctors too, and they're saying no, right?
Well, no, on all my intake forms, you write any surgeries you have, and on every single one, I put
implants,
breast augmentation.
Right.
And so it was there. I just didn't even know it was a thing to ask. But my issue was that because of my PTSD in the Virginia health system, I got labeled. Because just like they have my chart where people can go back and see,
right?
They saw I had PTSD. So I remember going to a cardiology clinic for them to check my heart for irregular heartbeat because I told them, hey, I'm starting to pass out. I can't do this. And the lady, I'm sitting there and she's holding the monitor, whatever, on me, and I'm seeing my heart is not regular, but she's not recording that part. And I said, why aren't you getting that part? She said, oh, that's where you just moved. I said, I didn't move.
No. So you have obvious irregular heartbeat. And she's not reporting that section of it?
Yeah.
So weird.
Because I was so labeled in that system. That's why I was going into doctors like, oh, you have PTSD. This is just PTSD. I literally went to one doctor who said, I won't even look at possibly treating you unless you're in therapy and on Klonopin.
Holy hell. If you're not on a brain-altering drug, I won't treat you.
Yeah. So I said, I won't do Klonopin. I feel like that's just really addicting. I would do Valium, but I won't do Klonopin because I had been given that before, and the Klonopin just had withdrawals just after one dose. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Whoa.
And with Valium, I would take and just cut it into quarters.
Did you have withdrawals like the withdrawals you have when you're not around me? Is that
it made me feel sick. Gave me a lot of anxiety.
Is that how you feel when you're not
cry?
When you're not around me?
Yeah.
You feel sick and anxiety and you want to cry? All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So
so I went to a therapist to fulfill this need, just trying to find some doctor who would try to help me. This was before the lupus diagnosis. And that therapist got angry. He's like, we talked through things, a couple of sessions. He's like, I don't understand why you're here. Because I had dealt with so many things. I'd listened to Tony Robbins and all this mindset stuff. And I was in a good place mentally, just not physically.
Right.
And I told him why. And I remember he got mad. He got so mad. And one thing he said is stress can take tolls on the body in a lot of ways. And it's real. Doesn't mean it's psychological.
Right.
And so anyway, I enjoyed the session. I like talking psychology with people. So usually in the past decade, my sessions with therapists have just been educational, and I enjoy them.
Right.
But anyway, so just being pushed off so much. And it wasn't until I came back out to Utah that it was my gastroenterologist who's like, do you know you have an irregular heartbeat? And I just paused, swallowed my own throat. And I said, yes. Because the first time I had a doctor who would actually validate.
And I remember dating you laying on your chest and hearing your heartbeat. And I remember that it was irregular. And I was like, it's like, dun, 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 dun. And it was just the weirdest heartbeat ever, you know?
Yeah. Well, and then whenever I had Ava,
right,
I was pregnant with her, and I had appendicitis during the pregnancy, and we had that removed, and then my irregular heartbeat got worse to the point I was labeled disabled. We had a handicap placard laying down. My heart rate was 130. Like something was definitely wrong with my body.
Something was wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. But because of going to that health conference and the things that I learned, I've been a food Nazi.
Right.
I have. Our kids eat different than other kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have some sugar and stuff, but I limit it. I watch it.
Right.
I try to make
She
sure
is
we
a
get
food
vegetables.
Nazi. Like she
Yeah.
watches the kids sugar intake every single day.
I mean, their candy goes in from Halloween
But
goes
you know
in a
what?
bag.
They don't gorge themselves on candy like some kids do. Like I did when I was a kid. Whenever
Uh-huh.
I had candy, I would gorge myself on it and nobody would limit me. And our kids, they do not do that. Nor do they actually have the desire to.
Oh,
Like
Ava would.
Ava might.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ava.
That's Ava.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ava would.
But it's because I want to teach our kids good health habits because I didn't have that. And whenever I had to fight autoimmune for so many years, because even though I was able to reverse any lupus diagnosis and I got to be able to move around more and do better, I would still have these flare ups that I just couldn't overcome. And how many supplements did you see me try?
Right. Yep.
And it's like just exercise. People think, oh, exercise, you'll get better. Not if your body is fighting constantly.
Right.
Not if it needs a lot of rest because it's constantly at war.
Right.
And so I just did everything I could. And I would play these games with myself. Do you remember that? Oh, this supplement's it. This is working. This is what I needed.
Oh, this feels so much better. I feel so much better with this. Yeah.
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 I was always trying to play that mind game with myself.
Well, it's because I think you really wanted to align your body with healing your mind with your body and say, oh, it's working. It's feeling good. Right. But in reality, it wasn't really working. Like we were experiencing issues in our relationship, physical, emotional. I mean, what other symptoms did you have? Because for me, it was like, oh my gosh, like, will she ever be better so I can just have a normal love life with her?
Well, I think you were annoyed with me.
Oh, I was highly annoyed. Yeah. But also I didn't understand it completely, but I was highly annoyed with it.
Well, I don't think anyone can understand it unless they're the one suffering.
Right.
You can have compassion,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't fully understand. And when it's day after day after day, you kind of forget, oh yeah, you have this going on.
Right.
And so the best advice I had was to make a list before my surgery of every single health issue.
I remember doing this with you. We were like all of your symptoms. So we made this little list on your phone with every symptom. Let's go over those. Yeah. Go over every symptom real quick.
Okay. Chronic fatigue.
Okay.
How is that now? Pretty much
gone. Yeah.
Gone. Myalgia. This is the generalized
gone.
pain, muscle, back, joint pain. I couldn't bend down for our kids. Like it was hard for me to stand back up once I did.
Right.
My knee would pop every single time.
I remember that.
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't have that issue anymore.
Right.
Completely gone. I hated giving my kids a bath because it was hard for me to kneel down and bathe them. It was painful. Gone. Brain fog.
Right.
I feel more sharp now than
You're sharper than I am, and you were like a dull pencil back then. No, I'm just kidding.
It got to the point, remember you'd say things to me and I would talk to you about it and then like an hour later I'd have no recollection of it.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
And you're like, what in the world is going on? And I'm like, I can't remember things.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's because you have kids.
Right, right. I hear that. I love hearing it. Oh, it's because you have this.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
Yeah, justifying it away.
Mm-hmm.
All my food sensitivities. Remember how I stayed bloated?
Yeah, you were always bloated and you always had like, you thought you had some allergy of some kind to all these different foods. Yeah.
Well, I reacted to a bunch of different foods, but a lot of times I looked pregnant.
Right. I remember. When you were really pregnant, you were really cute too. But
thank you.
You were also cute. Fake pregnant.
Fake pregnant. Thank you. Thank you. But I pretty much gone.
What?
That's gone.
It's gone. Oh yeah, it's gone.
I
mean,
can eat
unless
more
you have
food.
like some Del Taco or something crazy.
I don't eat Del Taco, but
Right.
yeah. But you remember how it was like just 2 weeks after surgery, we went out to eat and I ate food that did not affect me.
Right.
And I was blown away like that fast, 2 weeks after having my implants out. Chronic constipation, cracked tooth and sensitive gums.
Yep.
My gums would bleed.
I remember you all the time. Yeah. You'd always have these issues with your teeth. Yeah.
My gums would bleed every single time I brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
No more.
Can you looking at it from this perspective, can you like obviously understand why I thought you were some type of hypochondriac? Like,
well, yeah, it's a lot of crap, especially when you keep going to the doctor and they're like, yeah, all blood work's fine.
Yeah.
Because that's what I always got.
But the thing is with the blood panels and crap like that, they don't tell you, or the doctors don't tell you, oh, you have X amount of metals or
Yeah, they don't check
right. They
that.
don't go that deep into it.
No.
And so there was no identifying some of these things. So they're like, oh, they're normal. For everything we do, they're normal. Yeah.
Right. PVCs, my regular heartbeat,
Yep.
gone.
Yep.
I think since explant, there may have been 3 times that I felt something.
Mm-hmm.
But that could have been dehydration.
Yeah, or detoxing the leftover
Yeah.
crap in your bloodstream. Because they say, how long does it take to typically detox after explant?
At least 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
But I haven't done anything to try to push detox along. Because I'm like, why do I want to feel more like crap?
Right.
I'll let my body do this at its own pace. And I'll just gently do things and have a good, healthy diet. And so there have been some things that I've done, like green drinks, because they help detox. Modiflam brown seaweed extract, which is a heavy metal detox that developed for Chernobyl survivors, and different things that I've learned over time, which is normal to me. But when you go from having to take a lot of supplements every day just to be able to move, I feel like I haven't really had to do anything.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So next on the list, my phone turned off. Burning in my chest and arms.
Right. I
Remember how my arms would burn when I'd lay in bed at night?
Yeah.
Extreme hair loss. This is an interesting one.
Wild amounts of hair loss.
Because I had that off and on.
Incredible amounts of hair loss.
That was the one that led me to find breast implant illness.
Right.
Because I was losing so much hair, we were looking for wigs for me.
And she would have globs of hair. Like she would have, like, I remember this one time you brought me in, and it was the size of a bird nest.
Yeah.
Full of hair that you had just brushed out.
From one day.
And I remember looking at your scalp and going, oh my gosh, her hair is totally thinning out. Like it is going away.
Yeah. And we were trying to come to terms with it emotionally.
Yeah, we knew she was going bald. We knew you were going bald. It was just a matter of how much longer it took to have X amount of hair, because we were close. We were like, hey, let's go. We started looking online for wigs and wig services and local
and trying to find some way to feel okay with it.
Right.
And Ava, after having our last child, that's when my health really went down a lot more. I don't know if you recall that, but I remember during the pregnancy, my skin dried out so bad. There were just a lot of things.
What was weird though too about the pregnancy, some stuff got better for you.
Because it suppresses.
And some stuff got really bad.
Because pregnancy suppresses your immune system.
Right.
So where my immune system was fighting implants, my immune system was suppressed, so it wasn't fighting the implants as hard.
Yeah.
Because my chronic hives I had, how my whole body would be covered in hives on a daily basis.
Right.
I didn't have those when I was pregnant.
Right.
Because remember, they freaked out both times in the hospital afterwards, because as soon as I gave birth,
you had hives.
Boom, covered in hives.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a friend who was a doctor at the time at that hospital, and he came in and he was like, we need to what is this? And he started to research it and try to figure it out. We're like, she just gets these.
Yeah.
But then you also had what?
I had HELP syndrome.
Which was what?
So I had preeclampsia that they didn't catch in the first pregnancy, and until I was in labor. And then I was actually released. I remember my tongue started swelling and all this stuff, and I went to the ER closer to our house, and they gave me Benadryl and sent me home.
Right.
Before they read my blood work and realized I had a life-threatening condition, and they couldn't reach me, and they're about to send the police to our house to take me to the emergency room.
Right.
To admit me to the hospital. And we stayed in the hospital with a magnesium drip where they're trying to regulate me so I didn't have seizures.
Yep.
And I finally convinced them, just let me go home.
I was super scared that night. Like, I thought there's something severely wrong with her. Yeah, that was a tough moment for me.
Well, and it was really weird because I guess it makes people feel really, really bad. And they kept coming in to check on me, and I'm just up and hi, and they're like, what in the world? But in hindsight, I think I had, because I had so many nutritional deficiencies that I think my body was taking the magnesium like a champ.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the last couple hours of the drip that I started feeling really sick.
Well, it's because your body, was so used to handling such difficult things, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Okay, next one's dry eyes. Oh, my hair, though. My hair grew back 3 times as thick.
Yeah. and I don't know if you guys can tell this, but after she did the explant, her hair grew back and it is so thick. I don't even know if you guys can realize it's like all the way around, just this gorgeous, long, thick hair, which you didn't have.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until you pointed it out that my eyelashes
Are thicker and
longer.
longer. Yep.
And I, over the years of having implants, because I had them for over a decade,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 13 years, I hadn't noticed it was so gradual for me.
Yeah, your skin got better. Your eyes, they were kind of sunken in. They're back to normal. Like there were so many symptoms. Let's read through the rest of the symptom list.
Okay. Skin infections.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, for a year, I had an infection right here that
Oh
stayed
yeah, it
and
just
wouldn't go
stayed
away.
that's right, on the side of your face, and it took like 2 years to go away.
After explant, it went down dramatically in the first few months, and then I think I was left with scar tissue.
It was like a chronic zit or something. It was
It
really
was like
weird.
a cyst of some
It's like a
sort,
cyst
and
on
I
your
could
face.
nothing
Yeah.
I did made it go away. It was just very angry. Um, dry eyes and blurry vision.
Mm-hmm.
My eyes aren't as dry. My vision still kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's why she married me, because she's like, I think you're really cute. I can't tell. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she stayed married to me. She still has bad vision.
Yeah. I was in premenopause by the age of 37,
Right.
which led to a bunch of miscarriages
Mm-hmm.
as well. The complications in pregnancy with my heart and blood pressure and chronic inflammation, like we talked about, and chronic hives.
Yep.
I rarely ever get hives now.
Yeah, it's super rare. And you had them all the time before.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. It was just
Every
a normal
day there
thing,
was one hive somewhere on you.
at least.
Yeah, at least.
Or my whole back would be covered,
Yeah.
or my legs would be covered, or my arms would be covered. Or if I tried to carry a backpack for too long, I'd get a huge hive where the pressure was. Like,
yeah. I
always.
remember I'd be like, oh, I like it. It's like natural lingerie.
Yeah, you told me it was like a tattoo that
Like-
moved around.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Let's see. Temperature sensitivity.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Remember how cold I was all the time?
Mm-hmm.
All the time. And not anymore.
No, now we sleep in a colder room.
We sleep in
Yeah,
a cold
our
room.
room's probably 65 at night. Yeah.
Yeah. Difficulty handling stress.
Yeah.
Remember how, like, don't give me anything to do. I can't,
Mhm.
like, it was just overwhelming for me. And then how long was it after explant? I remember we had an issue in one of our transactions, and I'm like, let me call
I'll
him.
handle it. Yeah.
I'm talking to him. And you're like,
I'm all with the F.
yeah, you are. You're like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I've
Yeah.
got this. I'm handling this. But I also started doing things for my adrenal glands at that point after explant, because I recognized what was going on, and I started giving things to support my adrenals, which I had done before explant and still didn't make a difference.
Right.
Let's see. Poor memory. We talked about that. Low libido,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, depression, recurring SIBO, and
Mhm.
IBS.
And tell people what SIBO is for those who don't know. Small
Um,
intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Overgrowth. Yeah.
I was almost there. I almost
Yeah.
had it.
I think I was treated for that at least 3 times in just a few years.
Yeah, and that condition would make her breath really bad.
Yeah.
Because it was in your small intestine. And so
Uh-huh.
when you would talk, not when you breathe, it didn't come out your lungs, but when you would talk, you could smell it.
Yeah. It was a
drastically.
certain gas that's produced that
Right.
comes back up. And I wouldn't know it was there. And so how embarrassing for
Yeah.
how many years
Right.
that was with people I just tried to even communicate with.
Right.
And I didn't know. I just knew I was suffering. And finally we had the gastroenterologist who figured it out.
Right.
And I haven't had any of those issues since explant.
Not to be too personal, but being personal with this, I remember when you had a vaginal smell as well that went
Mhm.
along with it, and that's gone too.
Whole body shutting down.
Yeah,
Like,
your body was just going into this absolute shutdown, death mode. Yeah,
yeah. It was constantly just trying to survive. Like, when your body's fighting one thing, it has to give up on other
right,
parts. I mean,
right. The non-essential parts it has to give up on.
13 years.
Yeah, right.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
Let's see. General muscle weakness.
Hmm.
Body odor even after showering.
Right. Yep, I remember that.
You never told me that until
Well,
after explant.
what am I?
See,
Hey.
this is what makes you look a lot better. All the things that you had to deal with me because you actually really loved me that
I did
weren't
really love
pleasant.
you. Yeah,
You did?
I did.
Or you do?
I did. And I do.
There you go. So, yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Photosensitivity.
Yeah.
That's mostly gone. It was really bad. I would get migraines a lot easier than I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And chemical sensitivities.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Soaps and detergents and all that stuff. Yep.
My migraines.
Yep.
My eyes were always bloodshot. Let's see, nausea. Always nauseated.
Yeah. They were, notice that I comment you on your blue eyes a lot more because the contrast between the white and the blue is so much stronger now that's why I see it, because when they're bloodshot, you don't see them as well. It kind of blends in, but the contrast between the white and the blue is so drastic now.
Yeah. Dry mouth.
Yeah.
Always. No matter how much I drink.
Mm-hmm.
Acne.
Tons of acne.
Yeah.
Yep.
On my back.
Yeah. Oh, all over her whole back was covered in acne.
It wasn't that bad.
It was covered, and sometimes it was really bad.
Yeah.
But I didn't say it was that bad.
Thank you. Completely gone.
Yep. Completely gone.
Yeah. Now I just have a bunch of acne scars and occasional hormonal breakout on my face.
And in your mind.
Yeah. But I also have a hormonal balance from going into menopause at 37.
And being a woman.
No, whatever. Let's see. My heartburn. Remember how I constantly had heartburn?
Yeah.
We haven't read this list in a while, so
Yeah.
I had to keep Tums on my nightstand.
Always. Yeah. You were always slamming Tums.
Yeah, I was, because I'd wake up in the middle of the night in so much pain.
And it wasn't because we ate crap, because we didn't eat crap.
No.
It was just anything would set it off.
I couldn't eat crap because if I did, I would instantly feel sick.
Right.
Let's see. Oh, a ton of mucus in nose and throat daily. And constant nutritional deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Remember they had to put me on a prescription for vitamin D.
Yep.
But that's only, so one doctor was put me on antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't fill the prescription. I was unsure about it. And I went to my gastroenterologist for a regular appointment, and he did a full panel and found I had nutritional deficiencies and that my vitamin D was so low that was what was actually causing my symptoms, and I didn't need antidepressants.
Right. Your mental symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he had me on prescription and over the counter at the same time because it was so low.
So people may want to know, like, did you marry me with bad vision, mental disorder, all of these different conditions, and you're staying with me? Why? Because you were kind of a different person when you married me.
When did I say mental disorder? Oh, that was your mental disorder. Right. Should I interview you next so we can go through your list of crap?
No, let's not go through my shit.
Okay. Don't open the door if you don't want it. Let's see. Shaky hands. You called me your chihuahua.
She was my chihuahua. Yeah, she's constantly doing this. Just
Yeah.
You'd go reaching for something, just normal shit, and you would just like shake. Yeah.
And the kids would always like point out to me, Mom, you're shaking. I'm like, I always shake.
The only time you ever shake now is if you haven't eaten or whatever. Yeah.
Or I'm too tired.
Right. But you always shook back then.
Yeah, I don't.
I was always like, are you cold? And you're like, no, I'm fine. But you'd just be shaking.
Shaking so bad. I hated that because I could feel almost a weakness and not ability to control things as much. Like it, I didn't like that at all.
Right.
Chronic upper back and neck issues.
Mm-hmm.
And after explant, going to my chiropractor, how easy it was for him to adjust me. And I was having to go multiple times a month. And then 6 explant, I only go every few months.
Right.
I don't have to go very often. If something gets out of place, a lot of times I can stretch and it just goes back into place. It was never life before explant.
Right.
I think that's because inflammation went down.
Right.
Let's see. Strong smelling urine.
Yes.
You told me that one too.
Yep. It was. Yeah. It was strong.
Yeah. I don't even know.
Yeah.
My ADHD, which I still have, but it was a lot harder.
Right.
I think.
That's part of your mental disorder.
I bet a bunch of people were offended. because a lot of people have ADHD.
Including me.
Yes, that is true. For the record, Alma has ADHD. So I don't take it personal when I'm talking about something important and then he starts talking about
Look, if people take
something
things
random.
personal on this channel, they should not be watching this channel. Yeah.
It's fine. Anyway, my sudden gray hairs. Remember how suddenly,
Oh,
boom,
yeah,
I just
pop.
erupted in gray hair? What the
Yep.
crap? Tired after a full night's sleep all the time, which I think there's probably a ton of people who can actually relate to that. I think a lot of people have that issue.
Yeah, you sleep all night long. You get a full 8 or 9 or whatever hours, and you're still tired. Or you get 6 hours. You think you should be up jamming. No, you're tired. Yeah.
Night sweats. Do you remember I'd sweat all the time?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I do remember that.
Sweat so
I was
bad.
like, why are you so sweaty? Why are you so hot?
You would push me away from you.
I would.
You're like, you're making me hot.
Well, you would. You would make me hot and then wet. And you're all, you're hot. You have sweats.
I'm like, you're sweating.
I'm all, no, it's not me. I feel good.
You're like, if I'm sweating, it's because you're making me sweat. You're like, you're a heater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still hot, though.
Thank you. Thank you. My sensitive skin.
Yeah.
Couldn't.
I hated this one.
Yeah.
I hated it because I love to touch you, rub your arms.
And it would hurt me.
Yeah. Rub your legs, rub my thumb on your hand. And it would just send her through the wall.
I hated.
Through the ceiling, rather.
This sounds bad. I hated for you to touch me.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to touch me.
Right.
And it's like I craved to be touched and held.
By me.
But it would hurt.
Right. Specifically, you crave to be touched and held by me.
Yes. By
right.
you. Yes.
But it did hurt.
And I will admit that still probably 10% of the time it still hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much better.
All of these things, I feel like, are there more on that list, or is that
We're almost done.
All right, let's get through those. But I wanted to comment on that just real quick. All of those things combined really dragged on our relationship.
Absolutely.
It really kicked our ass a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I was like, if this stuff doesn't go away, I can't I can't grow a relationship with this woman, And so all of those things were so difficult for me because we're spending all this time, all these years together, and we can't even develop a normal, healthy relationship that includes mental, emotional, all these things are affected, physical.
Yeah. Well, because
things.
you had a perception of a lack of desire for connection.
Right. And that was exactly what I thought. I was
You
like,
just thought
GF
I didn't want to
doesn't
touch
like
you.
me.
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't believe it hurt.
Right.
To touch. I mean, because that's what people
I'm
just
all,
touch each other.
What the hell is wrong with you? I remember us having drag out arguments over this stuff. What the hell is wrong with you? I'm just rubbing your arm. Give me a break,
Yeah. So I can see from your perspective. Can you see from my perspective how helpless I felt?
Oh,
that
of
I
course,
couldn't change things and I couldn't be normal no matter how much you wanted me to be normal.
Oh, totally. Yep.
And how that was painful for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't blame you because how are you going to understand it?
Right.
Tingling extremities, like parts of my body want to go to sleep.
I have something tingling, right?
Yeah, you can't.
What? No.
Stop.
No?
No.
Oh.
Okay. Shortness of breath. Remember, I get
Yes.
out of breath really easy.
Yep.
And
I remember trying to go hiking with you and
oh my goodness, no way. It didn't work.
No.
Because you're like, you just need to exercise more. And I'm thinking, you're telling me, the former athlete.
That's what I thought. I was like, you just need to break through.
That's what you'd always say.
I always thought it was like that first barrier that athletes have, when you first start running and you just have to break through that barrier.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it was. And I thought you just weren't willing to do it, but it was total fatigue.
Because in your mind, it was in my mind.
Right.
In your mind, I was just being weak because the examples of women that you had seen in your life that were weak, but little did you know, right in front of you was the strongest woman you'd ever met in your entire life.
Badass.
Thank you. But hey, you know now.
I know now. I saw the contrast between now and then. Yeah.
Yeah. You also saw how when I feel better, my personality becomes more explosive.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, dry lady parts.
Yep.
My body just wasn't working.
Sahara Desert. Sahara Desert. Was that too far? Is that too much?
It's too much.
Too much.
Too far. My elevated resting heart rate and my dry skin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, constant dry skin.
Yeah.
You would be ashy, like your skin would be ashy.
Mhm.
So all these things in your body are shutting down. You have all of these parts of your existence that are breaking down, shutting down. And I remember you were telling me, look, I think it's my implants. And I'm like, no, it can't be your implants. That's the last thing I
Yeah, that's
have.
right. I brought it up to you actually 2 years earlier.
Right. I remember. Yeah. I remember
Because
that. Yeah.
I saw someone online, but her issues were all like anxiety and depression, and she was pulling her hair out in chunks,
Right.
and hers affected her more maybe neurologically. And I didn't have that type of stuff. And I'm like, oh, maybe. And you're like, no, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
And that's why I was like, no, it's not implants. Because if that's what implants do, that's not what it's doing. It's doing something else. So it was hard for me to grasp that concept. And I remember just like trying to shut you down as quick as possible to get past this terrible idea that we might have to have these things removed.
yeah.
Right.
And I just was so passive at that point. And then by the time in 2020, it was June
2020.
No, this was May 2020 that this happened.
Yeah.
That I was to the point where I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore.
And you were losing the crap out of your hair.
Losing my hair is like the final thing that I had.
Right.
And you're like, no, those are a part of you. You can't take away a part of you. And I'm thinking, they're not a part of me.
Yeah. Well, that was because I'm this selfish animal man, right? Who's going, I want boobies, right? And I'm trying to identify them as who you are.
Yeah.
And as I'm trying to identify your boobs as a reason for us being together, for me wanting to be with you. And so I'm trying to, and as men, you know, we are visual and physical beings. Obviously our love languages are usually physical. And so for me, it was that the physical attachment and connection with you was highly related to your physical state, your body.
Okay.
Right?
So I'm going to open this one up on you.
Let's open it up.
The other issue for you, from the time I met you, you kept waiting for me to change because I was a nurturer for you. I wasn't like all the other women. And so you kept waiting like, don't change, don't change. You wanted me to stay the same because you needed that for your safe place.
Right.
And then suddenly I'm wanting to drastically change something about me. And when the whole time that was your fear.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. Yeah.
And so that was like a no-go, don't change.
Right.
You've got to be my constant.
Right.
And then suddenly I'm telling you, I've got to change.
And I remember, and that was the other thing too, is that you always hated me touching your breasts. Like
I felt like they were going to move out of place. That something. And then whenever we had surgery,
so it was like they were there. They looked great. They felt great, but
baby,
not
they were
for you.
hustler model boobs.
Yeah, they were
because
they
were done by the surgeon who does hustler models.
Yeah,
and so
that. Yeah.
they were done well.
Yeah, they were done well. But and that was what was really hard for me as a guy. Is I was like, look, this is an attraction thing. I like it. I want to be a part of this. Like
everything looked great on me.
Right. Yeah.
I could wear whatever.
Yeah, you were the. I remember going into like a store and they have these mannequins that have the perfect shape, and I'm like, that's you. That is your exact size.
Yeah.
And I remember and we still do this. We'll still take like stuff off the mannequins because that's the last size, for you is exactly what they use for their mannequins. But I just remember that was a heartbreaker for me, and as a guy, I'm just like, and like I said, I'm this like carnal, dumb animal. And the first fucking thing we look at is your physical and your physical appearance, which the first power of a woman is her beauty, right?
Yes. Who'd you learn that from?
I learned that from you.
That's right.
And that makes sense to me as a guy. But then what we do is there's this little thing inside of us as men where we go, we're going to attach to those things, right? I'm going to attach to the physical, this, that, or the other part of her body, whether I'm a butt guy or a boob guy or whatever guy that they say, right?
Well, that's part of our magic we have over you guys.
Right. It's true. It's actually true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you go really far back, that's how mating ritual and all that stuff was so effective.
Yeah.
But just looking at it from a non-carnal state, what I realized was as you showed me this video of this girl who went through it.
Let's go back to how this happened.
Okay.
So I tricked him. Because after I hung, I was just pissed off. I was so mad at him because I had already called and scheduled my consultation. Because I'm like, F you. This is what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm not going to live this way anymore. I was so convinced that this most likely was my answer that I did not care.
Yeah. So you had already made like this decision, like this is what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. The fighter came out to me. I'm like, I'm doing this. And I think that made it even harder for you because you felt you didn't have a say.
Right.
And to a certain extent, I wanted you to know you didn't have a say.
Well, and I felt like I was going to lose something. Right.
Yeah.
It was my fear of loss.
Right.
Right. Being
and
the big dumb
uncertainty,
animal.
you don't know. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I told you. You're a dog and all this stuff. And so
when in doubt, just insult a man and it works out.
you make me mad. You don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. But anyway, so.
But I was being a big dumb dog. I was
Yeah.
actually, this actually was true.
It was part of opening my throat chakra so I
Right.
could speak my
So you
truth.
could speak your truth.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, different show. So I posted on my Facebook page a video of a husband talking about how it was a man's job to support his wife.
Yes.
And his wife was in surgery in that moment, having her implants removed.
Right.
And it was talking about all the health struggles she had and how they had tried everything and they ultimately decided, we've got to do this.
Right.
And you said, don't post crap like that on your Facebook page.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
And I lied to you. And I said, oh, I just posted it there so I could look at it later.
I knew where it was at. I could look at it later.
Yeah.
Right.
When really, I was trapping you.
Yeah. She was baiting me. So anyways, this guy named Alex, right? He's talking about his wife who had her surgery and his process, his emotional and mental process. And I remember the feeling of just like relating to that on such a high level. I remember that being like, yeah, I get it. Yeah. And the stuff he said, I was feeling too. And so I made another video like that of me and my experience.
When I was in surgery.
When you were in surgery, because that video from him helped me so much get my mind out of my effing gutter and out of the big dumb dog and look at it from the perspective of this is my wife. You know, this is my sweetheart. And this is my world. You're my everything. And that was what was so important to me to remember at that moment, was that your boobs were not you.
Perspective.
You are you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really gave me a better perspective.
But more of what happened that night after that video, I trapped you a little more.
Right.
So you finished listening to that video. I'm acting like I'm not noticing.
Right.
And I start playing a video that someone had suggested to me that I hadn't watched yet.
That's right.
And this girl starts talking and she's telling my story of everything she suffered from, what doctors had treated her, like, oh, blood work's normal, just
and
push
those
off,
were
push
your
off.
were your symptoms that she was describing.
And she said things that I had said a million times. I feel like I'm dying a slow death. You remember that?
Yep.
You remember me telling you that I felt like every cell of my body was heavier than it should be.
Yep.
And so then you got up to go to the bathroom while it was playing, and you get partway there, and I think you were probably fighting it inside, and you're like, hey, can you pause that?
Yeah.
So I paused it, and I'm like,
I wanted to, yeah, you were, she was leveraging the big dumb dog. Yeah.
See, a woman's role is to influence a guy in a way when he doesn't know he's being
careful
influenced.
persuasion.
Yes.
Right.
Power of the woman.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then after that video, I went to sleep because I was really, really tired as always. And you stayed up till 3 a.m.
Going through videos on this stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was
learning it, figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was a Friday night. Saturday morning, when you woke up, first thing you said to me, you need to move forward with surgery.
Yep.
You need to call and change your consult to surgery.
Yep.
And I said, what? You said I stayed up till 3 a.m. I think this is what you have going on. Yeah. And that's the direction we need to go.
I knew it. Everything that I learned that night, I knew that that's what it was. And I was like, we've got to, instead of just consult, let's just see if they'll get us in for surgery.
I'm glad you figured it out first.
Yeah. I didn't figure it out first. I just figured it out eventually.
Okay.
That's usually how I figure stuff out, is eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it killed me all weekend.
Yeah.
All weekend. because I had to wait till Monday to call and say, when's your first surgery date?
Yeah.
And they put me on their cancellation list.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fantastic office and doctor, and they had a cancellation. I was in surgery in 2 weeks.
Yep. It was wild.
It was a blessing.
It was a blessing. So let's talk about after. So you had surgery, you came out. What was your immediate effect?
My chest felt lighter.
Yeah.
I could breathe.
I remember you going, I feel like I can breathe.
Oh, this oxygen. I felt more oxygen. And to the point, I reached up to see if I was wearing an oxygen little tube.
Right. Yeah.
Because
you were just absorbing so much more oxygen in your body.
And I don't know how long in the next year.
Yeah.
I had so much gratitude for our breath.
Yeah.
It limited my breath. Yeah. My breath of life was limited. And weight off my chest that enabled that. And
I remember you telling me that. Like, I feel like I can breathe and I feel like I don't have this weight. And yeah.
And then I threw up. But, I guess that's what happens.
That is what happens.
And then the next thing I noticed that happened was my skin.
Yep.
Became an oil slick.
Yep. I remember because your skin was so dry and then it just became like so moisturized, naturally moisturized.
I felt a layer.
Super skin, like super soft. Yep.
Yeah. I remember a week afterwards when I felt like going somewhere, we went and we walked around the grocery store and you hate people repeating themselves over and over again. It annoys you. And so when we were in that grocery store and 3 times within a short period of time, you said the same thing to me. Wow. I can't believe your skin.
So it was glowing. She was just glowing. And I just had not seen you like that before. Yeah. Except for the very first time you laid eyes on me and I saw you. You were glowing like that. But I think that was more your soul and your spirit than your skin. I don't know.
I was calling you a douche in my mind. Yeah. A story for another day.
That's another day.
Yeah. So, but what we did, I think, was really good for me is that after explant, I did hyperbaric. I did 10 sessions of hyperbaric oxygen treatment. And because I really wanted to jumpstart my body in the right way immediately following surgery.
How do you feel like that worked for you? You think the hyperbaric treatments were a good positive?
I do, because learning what that even does for the intestines and knowing how bad my intestines were.
Right.
And I really think it helped my body get back on track. And that was something that Alex's wife, Katie, suggested.
That's right. The guy who was in the first husband video.
Yeah. And because you called
What was his name? Alex?
Charfin.
Charfin. Chafin? Charfin. We'll have to get that right, Alex and Katie.
All
but
right.
Alex and Katie, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Because we ended up calling them and talking to them.
Yeah. You fearless guy who's not afraid to talk to anybody. You call them like you know them.
Yeah. And we're still Facebook friends. And
we're Facebook friends.
We had this.
Follow them and stuff.
But I had to know I really wanted to talk to him from his perspective and really get filled in on it. And we talked to her, we talked to Katie and got her perspective as well.
She's the one who suggested I do the symptoms list beforehand.
Right.
And
which was smart as hell.
Yeah. Because once you start feeling better, you almost forget how bad it was.
Yeah, you do.
And so when my body, I felt good. I felt better. But after a certain amount of time, it's like my body went into a detox where it felt like I was relapsing, which was very emotional for me.
It's almost like your body had a memory, huh? Like it was going back to it at some level.
I think it was still trying to purge.
Yeah.
Because every detox cycle, which is what I call it, at first they were longer and then each one got shorter and shorter and shorter.
Right.
And I would say after about 9 months, I was significantly better. We went on family vacation where I could actually participate. I could walk around without my feet swelling up.
I couldn't believe it. Like you would go in the water, you would do like.
I had energy.
It was stuff that like you wouldn't ever do before.
No.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I had energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's just been a fantastic journey. There's been a lot of unexpected ways to heal. Like after being sick for over a decade, getting your brain to understand you're not sick anymore.
Right.
That's hard, especially when you get better so quickly.
Well, it's because with your brain, you're creating these boundaries for you, right? You're creating these boundaries.
Safety.
Yeah, your safety net. And when you don't need that safety net anymore,
Yeah.
You go out into the world and you can go do real stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were at a kid's play place and your friend ran up a wall and grabbed hold, and I'm sitting there watching, and he's like,
Right.
come on, Jen.
Right.
And instantly my brain goes, no, you can't do that.
Right.
And then I sat there and thought, and I'm like, why couldn't I do that? Where is this belief coming from? The
Right.
belief that I can't jump on a trampoline.
Right.
And so we've done so many things.
I remember
since
that
then.
moment too. It was Jeremiah who
Yeah.
did that. And I remember that moment too, thinking, because I remember if you didn't go do stuff, sometimes I didn't do stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you were sedentary, sometimes I was sedentary too. And so like when he did that and he said that, I'm all, I can't do that. And then I was like, wait, yes, I can, you know? So there's all these different breakthroughs that I think we've had throughout the years of like, okay, what can we do now? What's next? And now
Yeah.
we've gone on amazing vacations. We've swam in the ocean. We've done
Zip
lines. We've done
kayaking.
Yeah.
A bunch of different places.
Out on, even just walking, like going on hike. We've gone on hikes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you couldn't go on hikes before, a bountiful trail all the way to the top, you know, which was like something amazing. I remember doing that trail with you and getting out and going and doing stuff and just thinking, oh my hell, actually I have my wife back,
Yeah.
you know, actually I have you for my first time.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been such a gift for me,
Yeah.
you know, to have you better and have you whole. And then what about our love life? How's that been for you?
It's dramatically different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's changed for you as far as, I mean,
My body works.
have I gotten better like in the sack at all?
Well, my body works now.
Yeah. It
So,
functions. Yes.
I can actually
Participate.
be a participant.
Yeah. Cause that was one thing. And I think a lot of guys will relate to this is that sometimes I think what's happening with some of these women is they're not participating because they hurt
Or they're tired,
or their insides are
there can be
swollen or they're
something
whatever.
out of balance with our bodies.
Right.
And the doctors don't know if it doesn't show up on blood work
Right.
because they're not doctors of nutrition.
Right.
And so it's like, what medicine can I give you?
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's understanding, which is a passion for me. And that's why you're like, you don't have to tell everybody. Because people come with issues and I'm like, oh, have you tried this and this and this?
Right.
You know, and nobody would, right?
Right.
And I came to a point where it's like, okay, the right people who need me will find me.
Right. Yep.
Because I've just learned.
Yeah. And at first I would, you know, cause I grew up, oh, you got to be really quiet and really private and really, and then, cause do you remember initially I was really hesitant about talking about this with people?
Well, here's your wife is an open book. I'm like,
I know you
way
are, but,
too open.
but I'm just saying like when this was an issue for me initially, cause I wanted our privacy.
Yeah, I remember that.
I didn't want other guys to know I wasn't getting laid X amount of times. Do you know what I'm saying? Just because that's how I am as a dude, right? I just didn't want anybody to feel sorry for me because you and I weren't just a fruitful, amazing, dynamic relationship at that time.
Yeah, well, I think that applied to everything in your life. It wasn't until your plane crashed that you started really
Not giving
opening up and talking.
and giving two shits about what anybody else thinks. Yeah.
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 That's because you needed to talk.
It's true.
And you had a wife who's a PTSD survivor.
And apparently an emotional counselor.
Yeah. Subtly.
Subtly an emotional counselor.
Subtly.
I've had better counseling working with you than any other counselor or doctor or anything I've ever had. So
Well, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. I suffered for that so that I could be here for you.
Yeah. Which, by the way, guys, she's getting some certification. So what will your actual certifications be that you're getting?
Wellness coach,
Wellness coach,
nutritionist
or nutrition coach?
nutrition coach.
Okay.
And I'm a Reiki master.
Yep.
now.
She's Reiki master.
All this from my journey of healing
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out how to get my body back in balance again emotionally as it recovered physically, because you really hold on to things
Yeah.
and you don't realize that you are.
Yep.
And so figuring out, especially when I wasn't able to be myself for so long,
Right.
then you start saying, well, who am I?
And
And who do I want to be?
right. And I'll tell you, it has changed everything for us. Like our relationship is so much better physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We went through a lot of bumps there for a little bit because we're trying to figure out how to actually have a relationship now after everything's back. And, you know, I didn't know you this way. You know, I didn't know you healthy. I only knew you sick. And my dad had a sick wife. I was going to say he raised a sick woman, but he did. He raised my mom, and she was sick her whole life. And so I thought this is the way that women were. So I didn't know how to have a relationship with a healthy woman. And that was a really difficult and hard transition for me as a dude, to get to a point where I could try to support a healthy, vibrant, vivacious, sexy,
independent,
blue eyes, perfect skin.
Well, it's also
woman.
hard because you didn't want me to change.
Right.
And I did.
Yeah.
Because I got better and healthier and I could do more. And I'm starting to feel my dreams again. And
right.
What do I want to do with myself? How do I want to grow? And you're like, huh?
Oh, I thought you were supposed to be like
my support
right.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so there's been a lot of transition with that for you to understand who I am. But I think you deserve accolades for how I've come through, like having my implants removed and it left me disfigured because how they put them in, the surgeon didn't tell me it would cause permanent damage. And you never make me feel that way. You make me feel whole and complete, even when I couldn't feel that way.
Well, it's because I really like you a lot.
Thank you. So when I was too insecure to accept my body for how it was, because it's been devastating seeing myself from Victoria's Secret model to what I would describe as hideous, and you don't describe it that way.
No, well, I don't see it that way either.
You don't make me feel that way. You make me feel as if you find me more beautiful now. And that has been imperative to my healing journey. And
I actually do find you more beautiful now because we have a better relationship now. We can connect on a higher level. And so you are more beautiful to me now than you were before.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So where can people find you at, Miss Jennifer?
I don't know. Where do you find me?
What's your Instagram? What's your IG?
Journey to Intentional, I guess.
Journey to Intentional.
That's one of them. You can find me through Alma.
Find her through me. I love you. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing your story. Ladies, if you're feeling this way, reach out to Jennifer and talk to her. If you feel like you have any issues with your breast implants or you have questions, just reach out to somebody who's gone through it before, right?
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys on next episode of Closer Cult Podcast.